Today we're going to be looking at Chapter 14, Lesson 4 Practice, using shorthand notation to complete number puzzles. Fill in the missing numbers. Think of a number. Remember that's going to be represented by a bag. Down below you see 2 bags, so you're going to double the number and add 6 to it. So they first thought of 12. They doubled it, which was 24, plus 6 is 30. In order to work backwards, you can subtract 6. So 14 minus 6 is 8, and then you would divide 8 by 2 and get 4. You can check your answer by doing 4 times 2, which is 8, plus 6, which is 14. Letter C, you have 6, so you're going to subtract 6, which would equal 0, and 0 divided by 2 would still be 0. Do the same thing for D. 40 minus 6 is going to be 34. Then you're going to take 34 and you're going to divide it by 2, and that's going to equal 17. For 8, you subtract 6, you get 2, divide it by 2, and you get 1. For number 2, you're going to do the same thing, where 1 will equal the top row, and then 2 plus 100 will equal the bottom part. So you can work backwards and subtract 100 from 138 and you would get 38. And then you're going to divide 38 by 2 in order to figure out how much one bag would be worth, which would equal 19. For number 2, the column of G, you would do 6 and multiply it by 2, which would be 12, plus 100, which would be 112. For H, you have 220, so you subtract 100 from that, and that would be 120. And then you're going to divide 120 by 2, and you would get 60. For I, you have 150, subtract 100 from it, and you get 50. Divide 50 by 2, and you would get 25. For J, you have 100, subtract 100 from it, you get 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. Remember, you can check your answers by working forwards again. For number 3, you have x, and then you have the equation 5x plus 75. So we're going to go to column N and work forward with that one, where you have 9, and then you're going to plug and chug into the equation 5x plus 75. And I know that 5 times 9 is going to be 45, and then I would add 75 to that, and you would come up with 120. Now in order to work backwards, you would take the second row, and I'm going to have 90, and I'm going to subtract 75 from it, and you would get 15. Then you take 15 and you're going to divide it by 5, and you would get 3. To check your answer, you could do 3 times 5 is 15. 15 plus 75 equals 90. Do the same thing for 80. Subtract 5 from it, or 75 from 80, and you're going to get 5. Then you take 5 divided by 5, and you get 1. 125 minus 75 is going to equal 50, and then you take 50 divided by 5, and you would get 10. For letter O, you have 175 minus 75, which is 100. And 100 divided by 5 would equal 20. For number 4, you have x, and your equation is 3x plus 150. Let's go to S, and we'll work forward first. So 15 times 3 is going to be 45, and then you take 150 plus 45, and you would get 195. Now we're going to have to work backwards using the bottom row, where we have 225. So you take 225 and minus 150 from it. You would get 75. Then you have to take 75 and divide it by the 3, and you would get 25. Now use it to work forward to check your answer. So 25 times 3 is 75. 75 plus 150 is 225. For Q, you have 150, so you would take 150 minus 150, which is 0. And 0 divided by 3 is 0. For 300, you subtract 150, and you would get 150. You're going to divide that by 3, and you would come up with 50. And for the last one, t, you have 240 minus 150, which is going to equal 90. Then you take 90 and divide it by 3 since you have that 3x, and that's going to equal 30. Remember to check your work, so you would have 30 times 3, which is 90. 90 plus 150 equals 240. Let's move on to test prep. Number 5, if x equals 4, what is 3x plus 18? So remember to plug and chug. So you would do 3 times 4 since you have the 3x, and you would get 12. And then you're going to add 18 to that. You would get 2 plus 8, which is going to be 10. Carry the 1, which is 30 altogether. Letter C. Remember to show your work though. You also need to explain yourself. You can explain that you use the plug and chug method, but then you also need to point to your work.